Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube. So we have to have a candid conversation here. And what I want to talk about in this video is the similarities and differences between sports trading cards and that of collectible card game based trading cards. Now, obviously the proverbial new kid on the block is your collectible card games. Your Pokemons, your Magic the Gatherings, your Yu-Gi-Ohs, your Flesh and Buds, your MetaZoos, all these particular products really came to be in 1993 with the advent of Magic the Gathering. If there would be no Magic the Gathering, if that particular card game didn't take off, we could make an argument that with the advent of Pokemon in the late 1990s, that particular genre then would have got off the ground. But we really have Magic the Gathering to thank for where we are today in the world of collectible card games. Now, I know some of you are going to disagree with that statement, simply because I know there's a lot of people out there that really, they only care about Pokemon. And if Pokemon isn't the answer, they hate whoever out there says something different. So I know I'm going to be attacked for that statement alone. I'm fine with that. But just know that really it was Wizards of the Coast that made the collectible card game genre possible with the advent of Magic the Gathering. And to be fair, if we look at the first manufacturer of the Pokemon card game, that was also Wizards of the Coast. So really the success of that genre really owes its origins to Magic the Gathering. Whether you agree with that or disagree, that's up to you. That is a fact. Now, on the other side of the spectrum, we have sports cards. Sports cards, I don't think I need to remind you guys this. They've been in existence well over 100 years at this particular point in time. Sports cards are not going anywhere at present time. Let's be realistic. This market is here to stay. There's a lot of people that are involved in sports card collecting, sports card investing, and the like. Third-party grading for sports cards literally ignited a fire in that proverbial market. Just like, to be fair, third-party grading also ignited a fire in collectible card game collecting. But overall, when we look at sports cards, one of the things that you got to keep in mind is a lot of the manufacturers that operate in that side of the market, they have a lot of knowledge because they went through boom and bust cycles. For instance, if we go back to the 80s and 90s, we go through a period that's called the junk wax era. Matter of fact, there's an excellent book. I recommend it repeatedly on this channel. It's called Mint Condition. I have it somewhere on my bookshelf back there. You can look it up on Amazon, and it's really how baseball cards became an American obsession. And that particular book goes into great detail on how sports cards became a thing, mainly baseball cards. Now, that particular market, a lot of those manufacturers learned the hard way through trial and error. And a lot of those companies along the way, some of them are no longer in existence to this very day, made a lot of mistakes. But unfortunately, the one concept that they really developed all on their own was something called mass-produced scarcity. Mass-produced scarcity hit the sports card world very hard. And I hate to say this, in the year 2023, it's still a thing. As a matter of fact, they're doing crazy things with one-of-one cards that are signed by the player, cards that are made with like pieces of a player's jersey, which I think is completely ridiculous. There's serialized cards. There's autographed refractor special edition cards. I mean, the sky is the limit. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, people were pretty much buying this stuff up due to the gambler's premium, where they could go to the market, they could pay an exorbitant price to get a factory sealed box of these sports cards and attempt to find one of these cards that if they found it and they sent it off to be graded, they could get potentially $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 in certain cases. Now, it's sad to say, but this philosophy and this manner in the way this market is governed is now spreading to collectible card games. So where am I going with this? We have to talk about this because Magic the Gathering has really been at the forefront of this. Let's be realistic. We had the Double Masters boxes, the VIP edition, that were like $100 a pack. that people would buy boxes of, and they would try to open to get some of these really, really incredibly hard to find, notice I didn't use the word rare, cards that were just made a certain way or were limited by the manufacturer. And we've had this thing going on literally since the lottery cards, the masterpiece editions that started to premiere in Battle of Zendikar and then also spread to Kaladesh, spread to Amonkhet, all of those particular sets of that era. And eventually, players, collectors, speculators, potentially investors started to sour on this idea. Because all that was happening is you'd go to the market, you would buy a booster box of Magic the Gathering cards or even a case. And what would prop up the value of that particular item before it was even open was the value of these ridiculous, limited, foiling masterpiece cards that were limited in nature. And as a result, I'm going to be very honest with you, it kind of turned me off to a lot of these particular products because, I see where we're going here. And it's sad to say, Timmy, Kimmy, Poindexter Jr., they don't understand how these markets work. They can get sucked into the hype. Now, it's not to say, and I want to be very clear here, that you can't make money on those particular products. But now, a lot of these manufacturers, they're pretty much taking another proverbial page out of the sports card manufacturer's playbook. And now we're going in the direction of one-on-one serialized cards that are being placed in the collector booster boxes, no less, when we talk about Magic the Gathering. And before we even talk about that, we have to look at the dichotomy in the market on how Pokemon is handling their particular card game at present time versus that of Magic the Gathering. Now, we all know, those of you that have been living under a rock, I know this is going to sound shocking to you, but Pokemon has exponentially started to increase print runs for their particular products because during the pandemic, when Timmy, Kimmy, and Poindexter Jr. were all locked indoors and the government kept throwing free money at them, they went to the market. They didn't want to save or invest this particular money. They spent it all on Pokemon cards and crazy things. So as a result, supply was very short-handed during the proverbial pandemic. So manufacturers started to adjust, and Pokemon Company in particular realized, hey, there's a lot of people buying our products. Even after the pandemic, there's still going to be demand there. So they adjust print runs accordingly. And now a lot of these particular cards are being produced in mass, and they're being hoarded. Because let's be realistic, there's a lot of YouTube channels, there's a lot of hype out there that says that Pokemon is going to be a great investment, not only now, but in the future. Now, I hate to say this, but there's been countless articles that I've covered on this channel written by Harry Rinker, and I just want to read you the ending paragraph of this one article that he wrote that was about sports cards. This is what Harry Rinker writes. Time is a great equalizer in terms of assigning value to antiques and collectibles. There are no fixed prices and no guarantees of what an object will be worth in 5, 10, or 50 years. There is one guarantee I will make. There is less risk investing in an established stock market index fund than in unopened boxes of new sports trading cards. And in all honesty, guys, recently I did another live stream with Jake from Pokenomics. You can check it out. If you know Jake's channel, Pokenomics, you can go there. You'll see it live stream with reserved investments. And we had a little over a 3-hour talk about nothing but pop culture markets, collectibles, and the market herein that we find ourselves in. And one of the things I kept bringing up was how a lot of these markets play out over time. And it was truly amazing to me. There were certain people in the live chat that all is what they knew is Pokemon. So every time I would start talking about comic books or rare coins or vintage toys or even Magic the Gathering, they would get upset because they would remind me it's not Pokemon. I really hate to say this to a lot of you guys out here, but your preferred collecting category does not exist in a vacuum. It is not devoid of market fundamentals. There seems to be right now this interesting war going on, especially among Pokemon collectors, investors, and speculators. It seems to be where the people that invested heavily in vintage products find themselves being ridiculed by modern era collectors because they think that there is some hidden cartel going on behind the scenes that are propping up the prices for vintage Pokemon collectibles, claiming that the modern era stuff is not going to be as worth as much down the line. Now, let me ask you this particular question. What collecting category do you know of where the modern era stuff is worth more than the vintage stuff? Once a collecting category catches steam, catches wind, people start investing and hoarding these particular items. What happens is, guys, everybody starts hoarding modern era items. So as a result, where the rare stuff is usually found is in the vintage stuff because those particular pieces were not hoarded in mass. And I'm so sick of people in the Pokemon community telling me, Sean, you don't understand. Do you know how hard it is to keep this stuff factory sealed? I really hate to tell you guys this, but I'm primarily an investor who also collects. It's very easy for me to go to the market. I can buy cases of this stuff. I can put it in a climate-controlled storage unit, and I never even have to look at it, let alone open it. I have no idea who you are addressing when you say something as stupid as that. It's just like people that invest in Lego sets, video games. How is it that they're all able to keep this stuff factory sealed, but yet a Pokemon collector can't? So therefore, that means there's going to be less and less of this on the open market going forward. And also, I would like to point out, most of you guys that are opening this stuff, if you find anything remotely good, you're sending it right away to get graded. So now it's coming back sealed in plastic with a grade on it. So it's not even having time to face wear and attrition. And this is really going to affect the market going forward. I want to make that very clear. Again, Pokemon collectors, your preferred market does not exist in a vacuum devoid of all economic fundamentals. And I want to make that very clear. You know, there's something else I want to touch on here. Are you guys aware why companies retire products? Like, do you understand where the concept of retiring products came from? It actually came from out of mass-produced scarcity. It was actually done many years before Beanie Babies hit the market, because a lot of people credit the idea of companies retiring products with the advent of Beanie Babies. That's not necessarily true. If you look at items produced by the Franklin Mint, by the Bradford Exchange, that were advertised on late-night infomercials, believe it or not, when they would limit print runs on those particular items, they would say, act now. This piece is going to be out of production, or this piece is going to retire, meaning you're not going to be able to get it anymore. It's a marketing, hype-driven term that's supposed to get the average Timmy, Kimmy, or Poindexter to act now to part with their money so the manufacturer isn't left with any remaining inventory. So when Beanie Babies came to fruition, that was one of their marketing gimmicks, so they would be sure they would clear out all the remaining inventory. They would put out hype-driven content that would tell the collectors, the speculators, and investors that they better act now because they're not making any more. Lego does this perfectly. You are aware, the reason why Lego, if you go on their website and they have retiring soon, or act now, it's going to be out of production soon, the reason why they do that, they don't want to be left with any remaining inventory. And a lot of the speculators, a lot of these investors, they just buy that marketing hype right up, not realizing that it benefits the manufacturer. It does not benefit the collector or the speculator, nor was it ever meant to. The only reason why that benefits the overall speculator and or investor is simply because there is a stable secondary marketplace for those particular items to be sold into. And make no mistake, guys, that can end at any time. If you really believe, if you expect me to believe that 20, 30, 40 years ago, people are still going to be coming to the market and being able to buy Lego sets and flip them for several times their value after that particular Lego set goes out of print or out of production, 20, 30, 40 years from now, I'm sorry, I don't buy it. Eventually, something has got to give in these markets. I've said this before. This is completely not sustainable for the long term, the way these manufacturers are handling these particular products. Now let's go back and let's talk about serialized cards being placed in Magic the Gathering, because this is a unique phenomenon that we got to discuss, and we already know where this is going, because literally Wizards of the Coast borrowed a page right out of the proverbial sports card manufacturer's playbook. So let's analyze this. So they're putting in a one-on-one serialized card in their new Lord of the Rings base set, the collector booster box. Now let's talk through this and let's play out the scenario. Rudy with Alpha Investments already did this. He did a very good video on it. I just want to expand on that. Let's suppose that this particular item gets put out there on the market and it is found. Let's suppose that either a collector finds it, or let's suppose that it's open excitingly during a live stream on YouTube. What's going to happen is there are already people that are putting out a bounty on that particular card. And, you know, it really made me feel uncomfortable, because the day that that card was announced, you had people coming out of the gate, I'll pay $50,000 for it. Somebody else came along and says, no, your dick's not big enough. I'll pay $100,000 for that particular card. Then somebody else came along and said, hey, you got a small dick too. I'm going to pay $250,000 for that card if it's found. Now, this is exactly the type of hype that Wizards of the Coast wants for this product, because what's it going to do? Well, it's going to ensure that every single last collector edition booster box is sold no matter what, because everybody out there is going to be thinking, well, there's a one-on-one serialized card somewhere in that plethora of product. So if I don't buy it, I could be missing out on finding that particular card that King Timmy is already willing to pay $250,000 for. Now, in all honesty, I think it's freaking ridiculous. I'm just going to state this. If you're going to pay $100,000, $250,000 for a mass-produced scarce item, you might as well go to the market and buy, or at least attempt to buy. If you can't get an Alpha Edition Black Lotus, get a Beta Edition Black Lotus. Hell, get an Unlimited Edition Black Lotus. Don't pay X number of dollars for a marketing gimmick that was pretty much thought up by a company that just needs money. And that's really what this comes down to. All of these products, you need to understand, they are being marketed to specifically not gamers, not collectors. They're being marketed to speculators and investors. And this is where we find ourselves in the year 2023. And what you guys got to realize is when these products hit the market, there's people like me. There's other people just buying them up, hoarding them. You know, now that we're at the end of the video, I honestly want to talk about this. I saw an interesting video on YouTube, and the video got a gazillion views. I'm not going to name the YouTuber in question that put this particular piece out, but it was something about video games becoming scarce in physical form. I really hate to tell you, Nintendo 3DS games, Nintendo DS games, Nintendo Wii, Nintendo Wii U, even Nintendo GameCube, Nintendo 64, Super Nintendo, original Nintendo games. These items, in most cases, guys, are not scarce. They're being hoarded. People literally, over the last few years, this is all connected, they were sitting home watching the prices for this stuff rise, and they look at it and they go, you know, I could probably invest in that. I can hoard some of this stuff, and it's going to potentially finance my retirement, could potentially finance my second home, could potentially finance my child's education. And you know, it's really sad because we've gone through this before back in the 80s and 90s, and nobody learned their lesson when the bottom dropped out. So now here we are in the year 2023, going through it again. I'm on YouTube. I'm literally telling you guys that this, for the most part, isn't going to work out the way that you guys think. Can you make money in these markets, short-term or long-term? Absolutely. I'm living proof of that. I want to be very clear. But if you're giving me $500 to $600 for a new Nintendo 3DS that literally just a couple of years ago you could have got for $199 at Walmart, Target, or on Amazon, I don't think you guys seem to realize that that is not sustainable long term. Markets in the antiques and collectibles trade were not designed to operate in that manner. There was always a period where if something got caught in the hype bubble, meaning Masters of the Universe was big, G.I. Joe, Star Wars, all of these toy lines that came out in the 80s, they ended up in the bargain bin. People didn't go into the bargain bin claiming they're going to invest in this stuff, buy them out of the bargain bin, and then all of a sudden prices started to rise right after that. That never happened. It took decades for prices to start to rise on those particular items. So I do not understand how the Pokemon crowd, how the video game crowd, how the Funko Pop crowd cannot understand that what you are seeing right now is not sustainable for the long term. And I'm going to go a step further. It's not even good for the overall health of the antiques and collectibles trade. Because somewhere we got in our heads, I don't want to wait for this stuff to become valuable. I want it to be valuable right now. So I'm going to go on YouTube or TikTok or collecting forums or Facebook groups. And I'm going to tell everybody, you got to buy. Man, they're no longer making Pokemon Ultra Moon here. If you look at the previous Pokemon games, they've all gone up in value. It's only going to take a little bit of time. Everybody's going to want this. You guys got to buy it now. Everybody buys in. And there's people coming into the comment section of all these videos that I do, and they're screaming at me going, Sean, you don't understand supply. You don't understand demand. I do. What you guys don't understand is how much of this shit is being hoarded. You know, one of the things that I'm debating on doing, and honestly, I am kind of leaning towards no, because I am a very private individual. But one of the things that I would really love to do before I hit delete on this channel at some point is take you guys in just one of my storage units and just show you how much of this stuff just myself is sitting on. That's why I laugh. You guys will watch Rudy with Alpha Investments. You guys will watch these Pokemon YouTubers. You see all this stuff in the background. A lot of these guys are sitting on tons of this stuff. And you go into the market and you go, well, how come I have to pay a premium to get it? Because, little Timmy, everybody is hoarding it. And I'm not saying that I'm one of the good guys in that scenario. I'm not. You guys see a lot of this stuff that I show in the background from time to time. You guys know I have multiples of this stuff. Hell, I'm still sitting on original Nintendo Amiibos that are case fresh. Meaning if somebody came to me and said, Sean, I'm looking for this Amiibo, I could probably go into my climate-controlled storage unit and get you a full case, factory sealed, from 2014, 2015, when Amiibos first premiered in the market, of that particular Amiibo. I keep trying to tell you guys, this stuff is not rare. It will never be rare, because when Nintendo released the Amiibo line, they did it utilizing mass-produced scarcity. Everyone was buying it and hoarding it. Very few people opened their Amiibos. There are some. Don't get me wrong. You can see them out there. There's people that admit, we open all of our Amiibos. But for the most part, guys, a lot of people are like me. They just kept them sealed. The only difference is, instead of me going to the market and buying one or two of them, hell, I was buying 4 cases of each. And I found people, retailers, suppliers, wholesalers, distributors, that were willing to sell them to me pretty much for lower than what you would pay at retail in some cases. I got a lot of my Amiibos from Toys R Us. Toys R Us had awesome promos on Amiibos. Everybody used to complain because when Amiibos came out, they were supposed to retail for $12.99. And Toys R Us upped the price to $13.99. And I didn't mind because they had a lot of promotions that pretty much dropped the price if you spent a lot of money in their stores. They had Toys R Us reward dollars. And what would happen is they would literally sell me factory sealed cases of this stuff. And that's how I ended up with a lot of it. I remember when Toys R Us had a buy one Amiibo, get one half off. Dude, I cleaned up. I mean, I remember even getting the Mega Yarn Yoshis that they were selling for $39.99. I was able to get them, literally, buy one, get one half off. And they were able, they like sold me like 8 of them. It was amazing back then. That's why I truly miss Toys R Us. But before we go any further and I go off on a rant, just understand, guys, this stuff wasn't meant to be hoarded like it is. It is not good for the sanctity of the secondary market. And a lot of you guys don't seem to realize that. You know, right now I'm keeping a running tally of all the collector groups that hate me. Right now it's Graded and Vintage Video Game Collectors. It's Pokemon Collectors. it's Funko Pop collectors, and I'm also getting hate from Pez collectors, all 10 of you that are left. So I just want to say, guys, I understand that what I preach on this channel is very controversial. I understand that it rubs people the wrong way. I understand that all of you do not have the money and the means to go after an item that is $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 so that you can call yourself an investor in the antiques and collectibles trade. I get it. But what I am going to say to you is you have to start making better financial decisions. Because again, the era of easy money is over. Where we go now is deeper into the unknown, where all these manufacturers are employing gimmicks at present time to pull you from your hard-earned money. And I'm telling you, a lot of you guys out there that don't listen to anything that I say on this channel, you're eventually going to get slapped in the face with a stale donut. It's going to be cream-filled. It might be jelly-filled. You're going to have to clean up the mess. It's not going to be fun, and you're going to look like a fool in the process. I don't want you to look like a fool. I don't want you to get slapped in the face with a stale donut. Understand how these markets work. If you want to speculate in these markets, you do you. But I would not be betting the house on, it's Pokemon. You don't understand, Sean. It's Pokemon. Pokemon's going to go to the moon. It's going to go to Mars. It's going to go all the way to your anus, and it's going to slap yourself in the face. And guess what, guys? That's exactly how I am going to end this video. Thank you for watching.